As you all probably know, Christian YouTube has been blowing up the last couple weeks. But here, I'm not going to be adding to the Christian drama. I'm not going to be looking to correct every single person on the little things that they're saying about the scrolls of Isaiah or about, witnesses to the resurrection of Jesus Christ. I want to hit on a topic that is directly related to all those conversations, but in my eyes transcends all of them. So for those who aren't aware, over the last couple of weeks, the Christian internet has been ablaze because Wes Huff, a popular Christian apologist who really came to prominence when he debated Billy Carson, who is kind of this, I don't know how to describe him. Conspiracy theorist isn't really the term. It's like ancient conspiracy theorist where he believes that Jesus was an alien or that he was made up. And there's just a lot of stuff about the Anunnaki, ancient Sumerian text, stuff like that. I'm not going to get all into it. But Wes Huff debated him and kind of made him look like a fool, which got the most famous podcaster in the world's attention, Joe Rogan, and he brought him on the show. And as has happened many times on Joe Rogan's show, when the topic of religion comes up, he brings up the whole, the nicest cult is the Mormons. They're crazy and everything they believe is stupid, but they're so nice, right?
Mormons are the nicest cult members.
And so they kind of go off on that, but Wes Huff says a few things in that interview that are factually incorrect. So then that gets the attention of one of the most popular kind of new atheists. And I guess agnostic would be more of a term for him. He's not, an ardent atheist that's like trying to disprove God. He has a lot of intellectual conversations about religion and about the nature of God, and he doesn't profess to believe in God. I really like him. I listen to his stuff. I think he's very fair. He's very smart, and he talks to a lot of very interesting people. So this Alex O'Connor guy, he's this new age atheist, he goes on and pretty much shows that Wes Huff is really wrong about a couple of the things. I'm not getting into it. But then this other Christian apologist named Gavin Ortlund, he goes on and tries to defend Wes Huff. And then Dan McClellan, who is a Latter-day Saint, but a biblical scholar, he goes on to show that Gavin Ortlund and Wes were wrong. And then Alex has Dan McClellan on to double show that they were wrong. And then a guy named Ruslan, he enters the conversation, invites Alex O'Connor on. Okay, so that's a lot. It sounds like high school drama. It's been really interesting. Like I said, I'm not giving the full view of what the argument was about. I'll put a couple links in the description if you're interested in watching these videos in full. But there's something really interesting that Alex O'Connor says, and it seems a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but kind of sincere as well. So we'll talk about it. But when he's talking to this Ruslan guy, after 2.5 or 3 hours of talking, then Ruslan has his viewers submit questions, and Alex O'Connor is asked this question.
Here's an interesting one from Deadpool. He said, Alex, if you had to join one Christian denomination, which do you believe has the most consistency according to the history of the church and scripture? This is where Alex would have to pick a jersey.
So what do you think his answer would be? He's talked to Catholic apologists, he's talked to Protestants, kind of New Age Christians, talked to atheists. What do you think his answer is going to be? It might surprise you. He says this.
Mormonism, of course.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. We don't consider them Christians. Give me another.
Now, we've heard this for decades, right? That we're not really Christians. And there's this funny meme right here that Mike Day sent to me a while ago. And it totally shows that you have all these Christian religions that don't agree on everything, but they all agree on one thing, that Mormons are not, that quote unquote Mormons, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, are not Christians. So before I make these big points, this transcendent point, let's see what Alex O'Connor has to say his reason is, or why he chose, the Mormon religion to be the most consistent Christianity.
That's the interesting thing is that they're sort of often not. I don't even know if they really like to consider themselves Christians as such. I think there's some really interesting. I've been learning a lot about Mormonism. Do you know, by the way, who the first ever U.S. presidential candidate to be assassinated was?
He was a Mormon.
It was Joseph Smith.
Whoa! Oh, he was a candidate. Joseph Smith was running for the.
Yeah,
that's
he ran for president. There's a lot of really interesting stuff about that. I think Mormonism's a fascinating religion in many ways. A lot of people aren't aware of its history and also of a lot of its doctrines and theological ideas and its different idea about like what God is and all of this kind of stuff. And the history of persecution of Mormons in the United States is pretty amazing too. Like there's so much really interesting stuff. The extermination order of Missouri, where like people were told to just kill them, like it's an unbelievable history.
Okay, so you can see from Alex's demeanor that he's kind of halfway saying it in jest, but he also is very curious about the Latter-day Saint religion, about our history. And I know one of the reasons he is curious is because Jacob Hansen from Thoughtful Faith actually had an interaction, went out to dinner with him and talked a lot about it. And I don't know if they've had any other conversations since then, but Alex O'Connor previous to that had a very, 30,000 foot level view of the Latter-day Saints and our theology and our doctrine. But as he points out, our theology and our doctrine really is interesting, and it's something worth diving into. And so this takes us to the main point. At the end of all of our videos, we say something. It's our catchphrase, right? We say, thanks for watching, and remember, until next time, stay curious and hungry. There's a reason I pick those two words, and I try to live my whole life by those two words, and it's because you cannot receive an answer to a question that you don't have in the first place. And so Jesus talks about how asking ye shall receive, knocking it shall be opened unto you, seeking ye shall find. But if you're not seeking, if you're not asking, if you're not knocking, then you're not going to receive any of that. And one thing that I see a lot from the general Christian audience is a lack of curiosity to really dig into it. They'll listen to what their pastors say are the beliefs and the things wrong with the theology of the Latter-day Saints, but they'll never actually get into it themselves. The well has already been poisoned. And if the well has been poisoned, then you have no reason to draw water from it, right? And this sort of attitude has been something that has plagued the Latter-day Saint cause since its inception. People saying that the well of water is poisoned, no need to draw the water and try it for yourself. And I get it. When these claims that Joseph Smith made, the claims that the Restored Gospel make, they're big claims. And so you should go in with some healthy skepticism, but you should try the water for yourself. Because there are testimonies of millions of people who stand up and they say, guess what? I tried the water in that well and it wasn't poisoned. It was the well of life that Christ talked about. It is the gateway to Christ's living water. There's this popular scene in the show Ted Lasso. I'm not going to explain the whole backstory of it, but essentially Ted Lasso is playing darts against a guy who's a big jerk. And they make this bet, right? And the guy totally underestimates Ted. He's like, of course I'll make this bet with you because there's no way a guy like you, this happy-go-lucky guy from the Midwest is going to beat me in darts. And so he makes the bet. And Ted goes on to do this amazing speech. And instead of explaining to you, I'll just show you the speech right here.
Hey! Better manners when I'm holding a dart. Please. Mate, what do I need to win?
2 triple 20s and a bullseye.
Good luck. Rupert, guys have underestimated me my entire life. And for years, I never understood why. It used to really bother me. But then one day, I was driving my little boy to school, and I saw this quote by Walt Whitman. It was painted on the wall there. It said, "Be curious, not judgmental." I like that. So I get back in my car, and I'm driving to work, and all of a sudden, it hits me. All them fellas that used to belittle me, not a single one of them were curious. They thought they had everything all figured out, and so they judged everything, and they judged everyone. And I realized that they're underestimating me. Who I was had nothing to do with it. Because if they were curious, they would ask questions. Questions like, have you played a lot of darts, Ted? Which I would have answered, yes, sir. Every Sunday afternoon at a sports bar with my father from age 10 until I was 16 when he passed away. Barbecue sauce.
I love that idea. It's just like, be curious, not judgmental. And that's something that we have to do as Latter-day Saints. Every single person. I'm not just speaking to you guys. I'm speaking to myself as well. It's really easy for us to be judgmental instead of curious. And in the age of the internet, when so many people are spewing out opinions, myself included, I share my opinions. At the end of the day, we should take those and do our own research and be curious. One thing that I see in, believing Christian scholars is this absolute faith, sincerity, and certainty in a few things, in the main claims of Christianity. But on the other end, they have an absolute disregard and lack of curiosity and lack of openness to anything outside of that realm, specifically to the claims of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The founding prophet of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Joseph Smith, is famous for saying this quote. Joseph Smith said, "Mormonism is truth. The first and fundamental principle of our holy religion is that we believe that we have a right to embrace all and every item of truth without limitation or being prohibited by the creeds or superstitious notions of men. Yes, we do have the fullness of the everlasting gospel, but that does not mean that we know everything. In fact, one principle of the restored gospel is our belief that God will yet reveal many great and important things." Joseph Smith had this level of openness, and I believe that that's why God was able to speak to him and work through him in such a great way, because he was a curious soul. He wanted to know the mysteries of God, and he believed that they would be revealed to him. And it's funny because you have Joe Rogan often will talk about like these guys, Mormons just blindly believe. How do they believe this crazy stuff? And Wes Huff even brings up this in his interview with Joe Rogan.
You know what's interesting about that is I have less of a problem with the objective truth claims and more of a problem with them saying, but don't look into it. Like, don't test it. Like, what I say goes, and you're not allowed to explore it. Like, talking about the Mormon church, they recently did this thing where they're like, you don't need to go on the internet, and you don't need to. And it's
Don't
like,
watch the
guys,
Book of Mormon.
yeah, guys, I don't think you realize what you're sounding like when
Right.
you come across in that way.
Mormons are the nicest cult members.
So he's talking about how the church is teaching, don't go learn for yourself. Now, there is a talk, there have been multiple talks that says, hey, guess what? The internet isn't the full arbiter of truth. And I think any Christian should believe that, right? There's so much garbage online that is lying even just about Christianity. And so that's what they're saying. But this is what Brigham Young, the second prophet of the church, had to say about believing blindly. And this is what Brigham Young, who was the leader of the church and, has caused waves in the new Netflix show American Primeval, this is what Brigham Young had to say. And tell me if you think this sounds like, a type of leader that's trying to just get people to blindly follow him and do whatever he wants. So this is what he says. "I am afraid that this people have so much confidence in their leaders," meaning him, "that they will not inquire for themselves of God, whether they are led by him. I am fearful they settle down in a state of blind self-security. Let every man and woman know by the whispering of the Spirit of God to themselves whether their leaders are walking in the path the Lord dictates." That's this leader who we're supposed to blindly follow, telling people, don't blindly follow. You seek revelation from the Lord. You read the scriptures. You ask questions, and they will be revealed to you. That is the invitation of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That's the reason we focus on that. I was a missionary for 2 years in Hungary, and our only thing that we did was invite people to read the scriptures, to build a relationship with God, and to ask him if the things that they were learning are true and if they come from him. That's all we were doing. And we knew when people did that with a sincere heart that they received answers. And another thing that I'll say is like Joe Rogan probably gets all of his information from an ex-member of the church. And it's just like at the end of the day, Joe Rogan, should I go to some of the friends that you had a falling out with to find out who Joe Rogan really is? Would that be the best way to find out who Joe Rogan is? Should we go talk to the Pharisees or the Sadducees to find out who Jesus was? Is that the best way to do it? And that's what's happening a lot of times. They're talking to people who either used to believe or had a bad experience, because guess what? Latter-day Saints are humans too, and there are people that do bad things who claim to be followers of Jesus Christ and are in the Latter-day Saint church? Or should you base what the church believes on people who actually believe in that? You know what I mean? Like, ask yourself where you're getting this information from. And I'm not saying to only get your information from one source, but don't make a decision based on one thing that one person says. You should talk to someone who had a bad experience or who left the church. Talk to someone who is in the church and believes, and then investigate the claims yourself. And then you have these 3 different ways, and hopefully you can have a better picture of what the Latter-day Saints believe and why they believe it. Because I'm telling you, the nature of God, the nature of Christ is so much richer within the framework that Joseph Smith reveals in the Restoration. It is infinitely, and what you'll hear a lot of times from Protestants who do not understand the theology, they really do not. They'll talk about how it debases God, it debases Christ. It makes the whole Bible an incongruent mess. It is the exact opposite of that. And for some reason, the rest of the Christian world has this insane aversion to even seriously considering the claims of the restored gospel. So this is my invitation. And it seems like Alex O'Connor is taking this invitation. And that's what I like about Alex, is he seems to be genuinely curious. But this is my invitation to the Wes Huffs, the Ruslans, is to maybe sincerely look into the claims of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, look into the theology, and try to just get rid of all the trite criticisms that have been given and passed down to you from online pastors, your own pastors, whatever. Sincerely talk to a Latter-day Saint. And I'm happy to talk to any of you. I would love to have a conversation with you. And it's not going to be contentious. I'm going to be curious, and I ask that you be curious as well. My hope is that we can then work together to prepare the world for the second coming of Jesus Christ. There's no reason to be divided. There's no reason to be judgmental. Let's be curious, not judgmental. And that's my hope. So, open invitation to any of these guys to have a conversation. It doesn't even have to be online. Let's just hop on the phone. We do that all the time. If you found this video useful, I ask that you share it around. And until next time, stay curious and hungry.